My name is Fatima Al-Hassan, and I am 38 years old. For 15 years, I lived as the wife of one of the most respected imams in Amman, Jordan, a woman who was supposed to be the perfect example of Islamic devotion, modesty, and submission. I wore the full niqab from the age of 14. I taught Quran classes to young girls in our mosque. I led women's prayer groups. I was the model Muslim woman that every mother pointed to when teaching her daughters about proper Islamic behavior. My husband, Imam Khalid al-Hassan, was beloved by thousands who came to our mosque every Friday to hear him preach. We had 4 children, a beautiful home near the mosque, and respect from everyone in our community. But behind the black fabric that covered my face, behind the religious perfection I displayed to the world, there was a woman slowly dying inside, suffocating under the weight of a faith that promised paradise but delivered only emptiness and fear. This is the story of how I found Jesus Christ in the most unlikely place, how my own community tried to burn me alive for my faith, and how 10,000 people witnessed a miracle that no one could deny or explain away. I grew up in a deeply religious family in the Palestinian refugee camp of Zarqa, just outside Amman. My father was a strict man who believed that women were the carriers of family honor and that any misstep, any hint of impropriety could destroy our reputation forever. I was taught from my earliest memories that my body was shameful, that my voice was shameful, that my very existence as a female was something to be hidden and controlled. I began wearing hijab at age 9, long before it was required, because I wanted to please Allah and avoid the hellfire I had been warned about in graphic detail. By 12, I was wearing the full face veil, the niqab, showing only my eyes to the world. I was taught that this made me pure, protected, a precious jewel that was too valuable to be displayed. But what it really made me was invisible, voiceless, a shadow moving through life without identity or personhood. When I was 17, my father arranged my marriage to Khalid, who was then 28 and already an assistant imam at a prominent mosque. It was considered a great honor for our family, a poor family from the camps, to be connected to such a respected religious figure. I met Khalid twice before our wedding, both times with my father present, both times speaking fewer than 20 words. On our wedding night, I discovered that the man I had married was cold, demanding, and viewed me not as a partner, but as property he had acquired. He quoted Quran verses to me about a wife's obligation to obey her husband, about how angels would curse me if I refused his desires, about how my paradise or hellfire depended on pleasing him. Over the next 15 years, I bore him 4 children, 3 daughters, and 1 son. I raised them, managed our household, taught Quran classes at the mosque, and performed every duty expected of an imam's wife with perfect precision. But I was desperately unhappy, and I felt guilty for being unhappy because I had been taught that a righteous Muslim woman should be content with whatever Allah had decreed for her. I prayed 5 times a day, sometimes more. I fasted not just during Ramadan, but additional days throughout the year. I read the Quran daily, often weeping as I recited verses about Allah's mercy, begging Him to fill the emptiness inside me, to give me peace, to help me love this life He had given me. But the more I prayed, the more empty I felt. The more I read the Quran, the more questions arose that I was not allowed to ask. Questions about why my testimony in court was worth half of a man's. Questions about why my inheritance was half my brother's. Questions about why I needed my husband's permission to travel, to work, to even leave the house. Questions about the verses that seemed to permit men to beat their wives, to marry multiple women, to divorce easily while women had almost no such rights. I pushed these questions down, told myself I was being tested by Satan. That doubt was a sign of weak faith. I watched my husband preach about the beauty and justice of Islam, about how Islamic law protected and honored women, and I wanted to believe him. I wanted to see my life as dignified and purposeful. But late at night, after Khalid had fallen asleep, after my children were in their beds, I would stand at my bedroom window, looking out at the lights of Amman, and feel like I was suffocating, like I was already dead and just waiting for my body to realize it. I had everything Islam promised a woman: a religious husband, children, security, respect in the community. So why did I feel like I was slowly disappearing, like I was becoming less human with each passing year? The turning point came 3 years ago in the most unexpected way. One of the women in my Quran class, a young woman named Mariam, had started asking questions that made me uncomfortable. She would ask about the verses on women, about whether Allah really commanded certain things, or whether these were cultural interpretations. I would give her the standard answers I had been taught, but her questions planted seeds in my mind that began to grow in the dark soil of my own doubts. Then one day, Mariam stopped coming to class. When I asked about her, the other women whispered that her family had sent her away, that she had been corrupted by Christian ideas, that she had brought shame on her family. I felt a strange mixture of shock and curiosity. What could Christianity possibly offer that would make someone risk everything? That night, I did something I had never done before. I used my daughter's phone, created a fake email account, and searched online for information about Christianity. I told myself I was doing research to better refute Christian arguments, to protect the women in my class from being led astray. But really, I was desperate to understand what could possibly be worth the kind of risk Mariam had taken. I found testimonies of former Muslims, people from backgrounds just like mine, who had left Islam for Christianity. Their stories resonated with me in ways that terrified me. They spoke about the same emptiness I felt, the same unanswered prayers, the same feeling of trying to earn God's approval and never knowing if they had done enough. But then they spoke about Jesus, not as the prophet Isa mentioned briefly in the Quran, but as someone who loved them personally, who had died for them specifically, who offered them not just paradise someday, but peace and joy right now. I started reading the Bible in secret, using online translations, reading late at night when everyone was asleep. I began with the Gospel of Matthew, and I was immediately struck by how different Jesus was from anything I had expected. He spoke with women, honored them, defended them, treated them as fully human. He touched lepers and loved prostitutes and forgave sinners and broke religious rules in order to show compassion. He claimed to be not just a prophet, but God himself, come to earth to reconcile humanity to the Father. He said things that were absolutely incompatible with Islam. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. He offered salvation not through works and striving, but through grace, through simply believing in him and accepting his sacrifice on the cross. The more I read, the more I felt something stirring inside me, something I had not felt in years. Hope. The possibility that God might actually love me, not because of what I did or how well I performed religious duties, but simply because he chose to love me. But I was terrified. I knew what happened to Muslims who converted to Christianity in Jordan. It was not officially illegal, but it might as well have been. Apostates faced rejection from family, loss of custody of children, violence, sometimes even honor killing. And I was not just any Muslim. I was an imam's wife. If my husband discovered what I was reading, what I was thinking, the consequences would be catastrophic, not just for me, but for my children. So I tried to stop. I deleted my search history, avoided those websites, told myself I had satisfied my curiosity, and now I needed to return to being a faithful Muslim. But I could not unsee what I had seen. I could not unlearn what I had learned. The words of Jesus kept echoing in my mind. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. I was so weary, I was so burdened, and I wanted rest more than I wanted my next breath. I need to pause my story for a moment and ask you something. Have you ever felt that knot in your stomach during prayer? That silent question that terrifies you, what if all of this is not true? I remember how alone I felt in those moments, believing I was the only one with these forbidden thoughts. If you are feeling this way right now, I want you to know something. You are not alone. There are thousands watching this who understand exactly what you are experiencing. The fear, the confusion, the silence that feels like it is suffocating you. Would you be brave enough to share just a small part of your journey? You can simply comment, I sometimes question too, or I understand this struggle. Your words, even anonymous ones, might be exactly what someone else needs to feel less alone in their darkest moment. I know this takes courage. I know some of you may need to use a different account or device. Your safety matters more than anything. But if you can, your comment might be the first time someone else feels truly understood. Now let me continue with what happened next. 2 months into my secret reading, I had a dream that changed everything. In the dream, I was drowning in dark water, sinking deeper and deeper, the niqab wrapped around my face, making it impossible to breathe. I was clawing at the fabric, trying to tear it off, but it only tightened. I knew I was about to die. Then, I felt hands grab me, strong hands pulling me up toward the surface. When I broke through the water, gasping for air, I saw a man dressed in white, his face shining with a light that did not hurt my eyes. He reached down and gently removed the niqab from my face. And when he did, I could suddenly breathe freely for the first time. He looked at me with such love, such tenderness, and said, "Fatima, I did not create you to be hidden and silenced. I created you to be free and to know you are deeply loved. You are my daughter, and I have called you by name." I woke up sobbing, my pillow soaked with tears, knowing beyond any doubt that I had just encountered Jesus Christ. After that dream, I could no longer pretend. I could no longer go through the motions of Islamic prayer while my heart was crying out to Jesus. I began praying to him in secret, whispering his name when I was alone, asking him to show me what to do, how to navigate this impossible situation. I felt his presence with me in ways I had never experienced in 20 years of Islamic devotion. There was a peace that would wash over me in moments of panic, a quiet voice in my mind giving me wisdom and courage, a sense of being seen and known and loved exactly as I was. I continued to wear my niqab, continued to teach Quran classes, continued to play the role of the perfect Imam's wife, but inside, I was a completely different person. I had been born again, just as Jesus promised, and there was no going back. For 6 months, I lived this double life, and it was torture. I felt like a hypocrite standing in front of women teaching them about Islam when I no longer believed it. I felt sick every time I had to participate in Islamic prayers, reciting words I no longer agreed with, bowing to a God I no longer followed. But I had 4 children to think about. I knew that if I revealed my conversion, I would lose them. In Islamic law, an apostate mother has no rights to her children. Khalid would get automatic custody, and I would be forbidden from ever seeing them again. So I stayed silent, praying desperately for Jesus to show me a way forward, to make a path where there seemed to be no path. The answer came in the most unexpected form. A new family moved into our neighborhood, a couple with 2 young children. The wife, whose name was Rania, began attending my Quran class. There was something different about her, a light in her eyes, a peace in her demeanor that seemed out of place. After class one day, she approached me privately and said something that made my blood run cold. "Sister Fatima, I know what you are going through. I know about your dreams. I know you have found Jesus." I froze, my heart pounding. How could she possibly know? Was this a trap? Was she going to expose me? She must have seen the terror in my eyes because she quickly added, "I am a believer too. My husband and I, we follow Jesus. We moved here to quietly help others like you who are seeking truth. You are not alone, and there is a way forward, but you need to trust me." Over the next few weeks, Rania became my lifeline. She and her husband were part of an underground network of believers, former Muslims and missionaries who worked together to help people who wanted to leave Islam and follow Christ. They had safe houses, legal resources, connections with organizations that could help with asylum applications. They told me that when the time was right, they could help me and my children escape to a country where we would be safe. But they warned me that I needed to be patient, that rushing could be dangerous, that we needed to plan carefully. So I waited, continued my double life, but now with hope that someday I would be free. Everything fell apart on a Friday afternoon 8 months ago. It was Jummah, the main congregational prayer, and our mosque was packed with over 1,000 worshippers. Khalid was giving the khutbah, the sermon, and as usual, I was in the women's section behind the screen that separated us from the men. My phone, which I thought was on silent, suddenly rang loudly, and in the quiet of the mosque, It sounded like an explosion. I quickly pulled it out to silence it, but the screen was lit up with a notification from a Bible app I had forgotten to delete. The words were visible. Gospel of John, chapter 3. A woman sitting next to me saw it. Our eyes met, and I watched the recognition and horror dawn on her face. She stood up and began shouting, pointing at me. She has a Bible on her phone. The Imam's wife has Christian materials. She is an apostate. The women's section erupted in chaos. Women were screaming, some with horror, some with anger. Within seconds, men burst through the screen separating the sections, something that would normally never happen, and grabbed my phone from my hands. Khalid stopped his sermon mid-sentence and came to see what the commotion was about. When they showed him my phone, when he saw the Bible app, the search history, the bookmarked testimonies of ex-Muslims, I watched his face transform from confusion to rage to something I can only describe as murderous hatred. He grabbed me by the arm, his fingers digging into my flesh hard enough to bruise, and dragged me to the front of the mosque. The entire congregation fell silent, 1,000 pairs of eyes fixed on us. Khalid's voice, the same voice that had preached about mercy and compassion just moments before, was now cold and full of venom. This woman, my wife, has betrayed Allah, betrayed Islam, betrayed me, and betrayed all of you. She has been secretly reading the corrupted Bible. She has been learning about Christianity. She is a murtad, an apostate, and you all know what the punishment for apostasy is. The crowd began to murmur, some shouting, some crying. I tried to speak, to defend myself, but Khalid struck me across the face so hard I fell to the ground. Several men grabbed me, dragged me outside to the courtyard of the mosque. I was screaming for mercy, screaming that they should at least think of my children, but my voice was drowned out by the mob that had formed, hundreds of people pouring out of the mosque, their faces twisted with religious fury. Someone brought gasoline. I still do not know where it came from, whether it had been planned or whether they found it nearby. But suddenly there was a canister of gasoline being poured over me as I was held down by multiple men. The smell was overwhelming, the liquid soaking through my clothes, my niqab. I was begging, pleading with Khalid, with anyone who would listen, but there was no mercy in their eyes. Khalid himself struck the match. I watched him do it, the man I had been married to for 15 years, the father of my children, and he struck the match without hesitation. As he threw it on me, he quoted a Quran verse about the punishment of those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger. The fire erupted instantly, engulfing me in flames. The pain was beyond description, beyond anything I could have imagined. I heard my own screams, but they sounded far away, like they were coming from someone else. I smelled my own flesh burning. I felt my skin melting. And in that moment, I was certain I was about to die. But then, something happened that I cannot explain. Something that 10,000 people witnessed, because by this time, news of what was happening had spread through the neighborhood, and a massive crowd had gathered, some filming on their phones, some just watching in horror. As I burned, I cried out one word, not in Arabic, but in English, a language I barely spoke. Jesus. Just that one word. Jesus. And the moment I spoke his name, something changed. The flames that had been consuming me, flames that should have killed me within minutes, suddenly seemed to pull back. They did not go out, but they stopped spreading. I felt arms around me, invisible but undeniably real, like someone was holding me in the middle of the fire. I heard a voice, clear as day, saying, "I am with you. Do not be afraid. They cannot take you until I am ready." The pain was still there, still excruciating, but mixed with it was the most profound peace I have ever experienced. A peace that made no logical sense, given that I was literally on fire. Then the miracle that everyone saw happened. The sky, which had been clear and sunny, suddenly darkened. Clouds gathered with impossible speed, swirling directly above the mosque courtyard. People in the crowd began pointing, shouting, some falling to their knees. Then rain began to fall, but not normal rain. It fell only on me, only on the spot where I was burning, like a column of water coming straight down from heaven. Within seconds, the flames were extinguished. The rain stopped as suddenly as it had started, and the clouds dispersed just as impossibly fast as they had formed. The entire sequence lasted maybe 30 seconds, but everyone saw it. Everyone. There were hundreds of witnesses, dozens of phone videos that were later posted online before authorities tried to scrub them from the internet. I was lying on the ground, smoke rising from my burned clothes and charred niqab, but I was alive. I was conscious. And when the first responders arrived minutes later and examined me, they found something that made no medical sense. Yes, my clothes were destroyed. Yes, my niqab was burned. But my skin, my flesh, where there should have been third-degree burns covering most of my body, where I should have been dying from shock and organ failure, instead there were only minor first- and second-degree burns on my arms and legs. My face, which had been directly in the flames, was completely untouched. Not a single burn, not even singed eyebrows. The paramedics kept saying, "This is impossible, this is medically impossible, she should be dead or at minimum critically burned, but she is fine." The crowd was in chaos. Some people were proclaiming it was a miracle from Allah, that He had saved me to give me a chance to repent. Others were saying it was proof that I was telling the truth, that the Christian God had protected me. Still others were trying to rationalize it, saying there must be some scientific explanation. But I knew the truth. Jesus had saved me. He had been there in the flames with me. He had sent rain from heaven specifically for me. He had protected my body from destruction. And He had done it in front of 10,000 witnesses so that no one could deny or ignore what had happened. I was taken to the hospital, treated for my relatively minor burns, and kept under police protection because the authorities were afraid the mob would try to finish what they had started. Khalid tried to visit me, tried to convince me to recant, to say I had been temporarily insane, to come back to Islam. But I refused. I told him and everyone else who would listen that Jesus Christ had saved my life, that He was the true God, that everything I had been taught about Christianity being false was a lie. I told them about my dreams, about the peace I had found, about the love that had transformed me from the inside out. Some people were furious, others were curious. A few, a very few, admitted quietly that they had questions too, that they had seen something they could not explain away. Within a week, Rania and her husband, along with the underground network of believers, had arranged for me to be secretly moved from the hospital to a safe house. The plan was to eventually get me out of Jordan entirely, to a country where I could live freely as a Christian. But there was one problem: my children. Khalid had custody, and there was no legal way for me to take them. I spent weeks in agony, praying desperately, begging Jesus to make a way for me to be reunited with my children. And then, another miracle happened. My oldest daughter, Layla, who was 14, managed to contact me through Rania. She told me that she had seen the video of what happened in the courtyard, that she had been having questions about Islam herself, and that she believed Jesus had saved me. She wanted to follow Him too. Over the next month, through careful secret communication, all three of my daughters, Layla, Noor, and little Sarah, who was only 9, told me they wanted to leave Islam and follow Jesus. My son Ahmed, who was 12 and had been deeply influenced by his father, was the only one who refused. It broke my heart, but I could not force him. With the help of the underground network, we arranged an escape. It was dangerous, complicated, and required help from multiple people risking their own safety. But 6 months ago, my 3 daughters and I crossed the border into a neighboring country, and from there, we were eventually resettled in Europe through a Christian refugee organization. We are safe now. We live in a country where we can worship Jesus openly, where my daughters can go to school without veils, where we are learning what it means to live in freedom. We have a small apartment, very modest compared to the large house we left behind, and we struggle financially, but we have something we never had before: peace, joy, hope, a relationship with a God who loves us unconditionally. My daughters are thriving, discovering who they are apart from the restrictive roles Islam had assigned them. We attend church every Sunday, and my girls sing worship songs with such joy it brings tears to my eyes. But I need to be honest with you. The cost has been enormous. I lost my son. Ahmed refuses to speak to me. Khalid has poisoned him against me, told him I am a traitor and a whore and that I am going to hell. I pray every day that someday Ahmed will seek the truth for himself, that Jesus will pursue him the way he pursued me. But for now, that door is closed, and it is the most painful thing I have ever experienced. I lost my extended family, my parents, my siblings, everyone. I lost my country, my language community, my culture. I lost the security and comfort of the life I knew, and I carry the emotional and spiritual scars of that day in the courtyard. The trauma of being set on fire by my own husband, the horror of watching a mob of religious people I had known for years, try to murder me in the name of God. And yet, I would make the same choice again without hesitation, because what I gained is infinitely more valuable than what I lost. I gained the truth. I gained Jesus. I gained freedom from a religious system that was crushing me. I gained daughters who are discovering their worth and value as image bearers of God, rather than as property to be controlled. I gained peace with God, not through endless striving and fear, but through the finished work of Christ on the cross. I gained the certainty of salvation, the assurance that nothing can separate me from the love of God in Christ Jesus. And I gained a purpose, which is to share my story so that others who are trapped in Islam, others who are suffocating under religious oppression, others who are questioning but afraid, might know that there is hope, there is freedom, and there is a God who loves them enough to walk through fire with them. If this testimony touched your heart in any way, please know you are not alone in your questions or struggles. Many of us have walked this difficult path before you. By subscribing to our channel, you will join a community of seekers and believers who understand the unique challenges you face. Each week, we share new stories of hope and freedom, testimonies of those who found light in their darkest moments. We respect your journey and your privacy completely. Whether you are just curious, questioning your faith, or already on your path to Christ, this space is for you. Subscribe by clicking below, and you will receive these powerful stories directly as we publish them. No judgment, no pressure, just authentic testimonies that might speak to the very questions you have been carrying silently in your heart. We understand watching these videos may come with risk. Your subscription is private. Consider using private browsing for added security. Remember, the same Jesus who saved me from the flames can save you too. You do not have to walk this path alone. Join us and let us discover truth together. I want to speak directly to the Muslim women watching this, especially those of you married to religious men, those of you wearing the niqab or burqa, those of you teaching Islam to your children while secretly doubting in your hearts. I see you. I was you. I know the suffocating weight of trying to be the perfect Muslim woman while feeling like you are slowly dying inside. I know the guilt you feel for having doubts, the fear of what would happen if anyone knew what you were really thinking, the loneliness of having no one to talk to about the questions that keep you awake at night. I know what it is like to read Quran verses about women and feel like you are less than human, to submit to a husband who treats you like property, to raise daughters and feel sick knowing they will face the same oppression you face. I know what it is like to pray and pray and pray and hear nothing but silence in response. And I want you to know that there is another way. Jesus sees you. He knows you. He loves you exactly as you are right now, with all your doubts and fears and questions. He does not see you as deficient because you are a woman. He does not require you to earn his love through perfect religious performance. He does not demand that you hide your face and your voice and your personhood to be acceptable to him. He created you in his image, female and male, both equally reflecting the glory of God. He died for you specifically, knowing your name, knowing your pain, knowing every tear you have cried in secret. And he is calling you to come to him, to exchange your heavy burdens for his light yoke, to find rest for your weary soul. I am not going to lie to you and pretend that following Jesus will be easy or safe. It will not be. You saw what happened to me. You know the risks. But I am here to tell you that Jesus is worth it. He is worth the fire. He is worth the loss. He is worth every sacrifice. Because he does not just offer you paradise someday after you die, if you manage to do enough good deeds to outweigh your bad deeds. He offers you abundant life right now, today, peace and joy and freedom that circumstances cannot touch. He offers you a relationship with God, not just religious obligations. He offers you certainty of salvation, not constant anxiety about whether you have done enough. And he offers you dignity and worth as a woman, not second-class status in this life with only the hope of better treatment in the next. For those of you who are Christians watching this, I have a request. Please pray for Muslim women. Pray for the millions of us who are trapped in oppressive religious systems, who are treated as property, who are beaten and abused and silenced in the name of God. Pray for the underground believers in Muslim-majority countries who are living double lives, terrified of being discovered, desperately needing support and encouragement. Support organizations that help Muslim women escape violence and persecution. Support ministries that are bringing the gospel to Muslim communities. And if you know Muslim women, befriend them, show them the love of Christ through your actions, be patient with their questions, and be willing to help them practically if they ever choose to leave Islam. I want to close with the moment that has become my anchor, my testimony, my daily reminder of God's faithfulness. When I was lying on that ground, when the rain had just extinguished the flames, when I was certain I should be dead, but somehow was not, I heard Jesus speak to me one more time. He said, "I called you out of darkness into my marvelous light. I brought you through the fire so that your faith, more precious than gold, might be proven genuine. Now go and tell others what I have done for you." So that is what I am doing. I am telling you, Jesus is real. He is powerful. He is loving. He is worth everything, and he is calling you right now, in this moment. Will you answer? The video that was filmed that day in the mosque courtyard has been viewed millions of times, despite attempts to remove it from the internet. Secular news outlets covered the story, calling it an unexplained meteorological phenomenon. Islamic scholars tried to explain it as a sign from Allah, giving me a chance to repent. But I know what really happened. The God of the universe, the one who created the clouds and the rain, the one who numbers the hairs on our heads and knows every tear we cry, that God personally intervened to save my life because he loves me and because he wanted to show 10,000 witnesses that Jesus Christ is Lord. Not just a prophet, not just a good teacher, but Lord, God in flesh, Savior, Redeemer, the only way to the Father. My name is Fatima, and I am no longer the silent, hidden wife of an Imam. I am a daughter of the King of Kings, a woman who walked through fire and was not consumed, a witness to the miraculous power and love of Jesus Christ. If you are ready to know this same Jesus, if you are tired of empty religion and want a real relationship with God, simply talk to him right now. Tell him you want to know the truth. Tell him you want to follow him. He will meet you right where you are. He met me in my secret late-night reading. He met me in my dreams. He met me in the flames. And he will meet you too, I promise. Thank you for listening to my story. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and give you peace. And please, if this testimony has impacted you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life might be changed by learning about the miracle-working power of Jesus Christ.